have to, Carly Drummer is probably going to join us for some part of the meeting.
No, I can't find it. From yesterday. I wrote the roads this morning and got it. Good morning. I'm convinced somebody dropped it. Never seen a dog before. It's got power on the dog.
Yeah.
And I was there petting him, but I tried to pull him a little and he wouldn't, he wasn't putting up with that. And I went to pick him up and he wasn't putting up with that. And so I just laying on the grass, the wet grass, petting his dog, trying to calm him down. And my wife comes outside.
Hello.
Hey, Jim.
Damn.
Hi, Sarah.
I'm well, how are you? I did.
Lisa?
First,
Okay.
so I took all the roads. Yes, puppy too. He's only maybe a year old.
Yellow lab?
Maybe a little mutt, I'm not sure.
Lisa? Hello?
I went past Brian's house this morning. I did.
Anybody hear me?
Guess I'm on TV, huh?
You're on TV, man. And you're recorded. And 100 years from now, someone will Google you and they'll go on YouTube or wherever. Zoom.
Nobody cares that much. Don't let it fool you.
Morning, Sarah.
Good morning,
Hi, Sarah.
buddy.
Anybody hear me? Lisa, it's Kenny Leggett.
What's that?
Hello?
We're way short of quality.
Lisa, can you hear me? It's Kenny Leggett.
Anybody calling in?
Yeah, somebody's on.
Dr. Drummer was going to call in.
But she doesn't
She's
care.
not a voter.
I mean, she can't.
She can't vote anyway. Yeah.
Hello?
Hello, Ken.
Oh, thank you. I wasn't sure I was in.
I know, I didn't see you on. I just, I happened to be at my computer, so I figured I would say hello back to you.
Okay, good enough. I'm here.
I'm marking you present.
All right. I may drop out because I'm driving up to Tannersville. If
I
I
hear
do,
you.
I'll try to get back.
Okay, thanks, Ken.
All right. Yep.
Let's see if it's right.
Morning. What do we need, 9?
Lauren, can you hear us?
I can.
She doesn't count.
Uh-oh, we've got this same issue again, Michael. Oh, I know.
I think she could hear
If I
us.
If I take her,
So Brian was supposed to show up. And so was Tiff. Absolutely. Looks like she might be muted.
can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Yes.
And now we can hear you.
Good job.
The Lord is our shepherd, we shall not want.
You may have a future life.
Actually, so I set it on. Microphone, like coming up pair or a trio, and then you put in like a
center, and you can switch between like, say,
Put it out on the table.
yeah, you put it in the center. of the
I saw
table.
some that are wireless.
Yeah, wireless, and then we have to control that at your keyboard, so you can check like one, six, camera to show that table, and so you can two,
Is it
so,
automatic? You have to do
no,
it?
somebody got the,
There's some that are like this, when someone talks it.
yeah,
Let's talk about that because the ones I saw were not that expensive.
yeah, me too, I saw an advertisement on one.
Yeah, $300 or $400.
Yep.
It's 8:30, but I think we're one short. More. More. Depends on who that is on the phone.
I know, there's nothing.
That's a good one. Somebody else.
I don't know if 2 phone numbers are.
Sometimes Tish calls.
Are they trying to speak to us? Cause if someone highlights yellow, does that mean they're talking?
Yes,
Cause the phone number won't hold up at being here anything.
could just be a little noise in the background.
Sometimes Ken phones in too.
Yeah,
I can hear you.
Kenny like it sometimes. phones in.
Yeah, he does almost.
Ken,
I don't know what his phone number. I don't know what his
I
phone
can't
number.
see it. It's-
Lisa knows. Lisa, do you know who the 2 phone numbers are?
One is Lisa.
Oh, it is Ken, so that gives us 9.
Yeah, I should be on the picture, so I should have it on.
Brian Stickles is on as well.
Hi, Brian.
Okay,
Morning,
so-
everybody.
Good morning, everybody.
We're
Welcome.
good.
I guess Mike and we had a nice visit with Mike Benson and his 2 boys. What's the name of the farm again?
Shadow
Shadow
Brook
Brook
Farm
Farms.
in
Yeah.
New Lebanon.
Very nice. They, nothing particular, they just wanted to show us their farm in Columbia County and for loans, I don't know, that's not maybe up in the air, but I think most importantly, we met the 2 sons, they're 24 and 26 years old, and they run the place. And they're 2 very aggressive young men. And Mike expressed interest in having his 2 boys contribute to society and sit on some boards. And it may be that Joe Benson is going to be applying to be on our board. And as soon as I hear from him, I'll forward it on to you.
That's the Mike Benson with supervisor. Yes.
Was it? Yes.
Yeah.
He was also on our board for a while.
Right, right.
You know, that's what we did. Those were my remarks.
Generational,
Hmm?
generational succession.
Yeah, the 2 boys, it was different as night and day, but both of them real nice kids. Kids, 24. Anyway, minutes from September, I assume everyone's read them. Any comments? Motion to accept? Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Carried.
Hi.
Look,
Thank you. Lot going on. As Dave said, we were up at the farm. Very interesting business model. Martha joined us and we were able to follow up with them and give them some thoughts on some ag business type grant programs that exist as they continue to expand. They have a nice farm shop there. Yesterday, I spent an hour or so up at Artomai. They have now a co-director with Ruth, and Ruth asked me to meet with him. And they're again looking at how you take a not-for-profit arts and cultural organization and make it sustainable over time. And Francis Greenberg is also working on a new project in Chatham. They were going to do it in Ghent, but they weren't able to get local planning board approval to create a arts pavilion. And the concept would be to take a large parcel of land, which is basically across from PS 21, and create trails and up into the woods, have different pavilions where you would have rotating artists. And Francis had explained it to me a year or so ago, based on a project he saw in Germany. We had a meeting last night with the County Economic Development Committee. We had numerous resolutions. One was relating to our broadband efforts on the county's behalf. They approved the reimbursement of the $30,000 that we had expended on phase 1 of the broadband study, and they approved paying us in advance of $30,000 for phase 2. There's a benefit to the county to pay those funds this year as it relates to their ARPA funding. In addition, we had a long discussion about both the USDA announcement that was made Saturday over in Catskill, where USDA will make up to $1.15 billion available for rural community broadband access. The difficulty for us is that they will prioritize projects that will serve low density rural areas lacking internet access at speeds of at least 25 Mbps.
Right, and our survey was all based around the 100.
Yeah, and so what we have found, and Consolidated pointed this out to us, that to the extent that there were funds available, many of the federal funding standards are to get you to 25, not to get you to 100. So anyone who's online, please go on mute until you're able to speak. We're getting some feedback that I'm hearing, if you would, please. At the same time, Senator Schumer in Western New York indicated Friday that the infrastructure bill, as he saw it on Friday, which presumably was getting close to where it's going to end up, would have $42.45 billion for broadband deployment to close the digital divide. It would also have $14 million for permanent broadband affordability, $2.75 billion for equity and inclusion, and $2 billion for the Reconnect program, which is the same program that Congressman Delgado and the Deputy Secretary of Ag announced was 1.15. So I don't know where the $8.5 million is going to go, but was it Everett Dirksen who used to say a million here, a million there? Pretty soon you're talking real money. So we are actively engaged with the providers. We have information from 2 of the providers as to which of the 1,200 911 addresses they would be interested in pursuing. Mostly on their fringe. We're trying to get the providers to identify which addresses they would be interested in serving based on where they're located, so that no one has to come in and try to overbuild infrastructure to get them. And when you look at that map, which has been updated last week, and the list as well, you're in a situation where we think there will be people, but there'll also be probably 300 to 500 homes that won't have anyone interested in serving them initially. And then you'll have to have some type of a reverse auction. I think it's going to be a cat and mouse game because, while the county had the 4 towns that were in Representative Delgado's award, those funds have not been approved by the Senate. So, but there's $850,000 there. They would take care of 340 of our 1,200. The county has explored the idea of contributing $1 million towards broadband. The issue there is if they spend the $1 million out of their $11 million, and the expansion of broadband to residents or to addresses that would otherwise have been covered by the $45 billion that Schumer's talking about, the county will not be able to be reimbursed for that. And so do they wait and see if they're going to be covered by the $45 billion package so that they could use the million for something else?
Yeah, what might happen is the Fed may come out and say we've got X amount of dollars, but it's for 25 meg. And then we're gonna back out.
We got to, Now, in talking to the carriers, I'm asking them, what would it take? What kind of subsidy would you need to get to different places? If there's going to be a cat and mouse game there, they're going to, if the government will put up all the money to, bring you to the next house down the street that you would have on your schedule to do anyway, you might wait and see whether, and at one point we did talk about, it would have to be federal, perhaps local and carrier money to some kind of a formula. And maybe it's 60-40, maybe it's 50-50. But I think, Dave, you had some rough numbers that kind of indicated that for $3.5 to $4 million, we could do the 1,200.
Yep.
It would be about $3,000 plus a average connection. And some of them are very inexpensive because they're the next house down. Others are going to be more difficult. So we were very pleased. We did get, Chairman Morrell did send me the email that he received from EEC, the entity, the company that had done work for the county 8 or 10 years ago on broadband, who have been retained by the state to undertake the PSC inventory of unserved areas. I spoke with our representative. I sent him our link to our map and our list. He got back, he was very complimentary of what we had done. Said he wished that ECC had been retained to do that work, but I told him on the phone it was not sitting at your computer overlaying maps and data. It was driving out in the field and taking pictures of poles.
They didn't do that, right?
No, they're doing survey work. They're doing what they've done in the other counties that, including Greene County. I'm a little concerned because he said, wow, you've really got this, you're way ahead of the game. But does our data just go in, slot 12 of 62 counties until they get all the data completed, and then they decide,
And ECC is being paid for this too. We've already done the work.
Yeah. I asked him for a credit and he laughed. And but I asked him, it's not clear that the state will take any action until they get data from everyone.
Does the state have a department for this yet?
Well, they have not revived the broadband office. Right now, they're doing it through the Public Service Commission.
Okay.
But that certainly is an issue. The other issue that we discussed last night with the county was our budget and our request for $460,000 of funding this year. The Economic Development Committee and the Board of Supervisors, we consult with them. As you know, we're an independent 501c3 with an independent board of directors, but right now we're about 55% of our revenues come from the county. At one point we were close to 70%. So we did point that out. There was great support to include us in the county budget at the 460, which is up from the, taking us back to where we were 2 years ago before the pandemic. In addition, one supervisor asked about the $60,000 a year that we had for 3 years from the DNJ sale, as to had we used that, and I indicated we used it one of the 3 years, so we still have it available for projects that we would consult with them. Again, they don't vote on this, but we ask their support in their other deliberations, both at the committee level and the full board level, to support that amount in the budget. And Chairman Morrell is also supportive of it.
Mike, did they ever ask about the water tower reserve?
No, and there's also the last piece of property that we sold for them. They asked us to hold that as well. And when I do a cash analysis, we still show that. My goal was to get restored to the funding level and not have them say use that, because you'll never get back to the funding level. So we're moving forward on that front. We also had a IDA-related resolution. As you may recall, there was an entity that had come in February, SAD Development, SAAD. They were from the South. They were real estate development company that was assisting Frito-Lay in attempting to find a site for a warehouse. They apparently pulled together, as well perhaps other site selector companies, several sites. That project ended up going down on I-84 down in Dutchess County. The IDA did pick up $7,500 in earnest money that was left, that they received as a result of the developer walking away from the purchase and sale contract. We have had another, and as you recall, that purchase price that they offered was $120,000, which we did advise the ABO we thought was above market value at the time. And we now have First Propane, Richard Kuhn is put a proposed offer in to purchase it for $80,000. So because the IDA had received the $7,500, I went ahead and got a appraisal, because if someone's offering 120 and someone's offering 80, what's it worth? And they did. Concord did an appraisal, Mark Taylor, and it came back at 90,560. So First Propane is willing to purchase it at that price. The county, because the resolution approving the transfer of the property from the county to the IDA specifically cited the previous transaction, they passed a resolution recommending to the full Board of Supervisors that they transfer the property to the IDA to sell it at the $90,650. They bought the architectural cast stone property that was next to this lot, and that was the project out of Chicago that came, and they were going to make architectural materials for fake. You got to take styrofoam and spray it with concrete to make cornices that look like sandstone for large cities, and they went bankrupt. And so they will have the ability to build a 20,000 square foot building on that site that they would be purchasing, and they want to expand their fabrication and service business for HVAC customers. So we obviously it's subject to final inspection, and it's subject to final approval by both the Board of Supervisors and the IDA, and by the town of Claverick Planning Board. The fourth resolutions that we dealt with last night was there were two additional solar projects. You'll recall the county asked CEDC to oversee pilot agreements for solar projects under 5 megawatts in where the town in which it's located had approved it. East Light Energy has a project in Claremont, and Eden Renewables has another one in Claverick. And the way we do that is the resolution. The developer negotiates with the town, and then it's split between the school district, 50% to the school district, 25% to the town, and 25% to the county. One developer has been offering $33,000 a megawatt. So on a 5 megawatt project, you're splitting up $15,000 a year with a 2% escalator. The other developer is offering $3,500. I've made all the towns aware of the fact that there's a disparity, but in many instances, the towns have gone ahead with the $3,000 for the developer that's offering less. Again, it's not a lot of money, but I didn't want the supervisors to say, why are we getting $5,000 on one and $7,500 on the other? The results are that both of those were approved, and they again are subject, the way we structured it. The county signs last. So if the school district and the town haven't signed, that's the checkpoint that we're not advancing projects that are not consistent with the home rule that each town exercises in deciding whether to have a solar project. The large project out in Copake, and a collection of other towns who challenged the state's authority to have this expedited siting process. That case was dismissed in favor of the state. And whether or not they take it, and that was, whether they appeal that or not, I guess is still in process, but I believe it was an appellate decision case. It was Mike Lynch decided it.
Yeah.
So at the same time, the county IDA is, acknowledges and accepts and supports the idea that the Board of Supervisors has unanimously requested that they not approve any project that's not received approval from either the town planning board or the town board. So, if they do proceed with to that project, and they are continually negotiating with the town with respect to the scale and size of it, I don't know what role the IDA might play, but it would certainly be dependent on the home rule issue. We've been working on a number of so in addition, broadband, the other issue that came up last night with the supervisors, Chris Nardone from the Workforce New York office, he had replaced Maureen Boughton a year or so ago at the college. He reported on labor statistics, and he and I and Jeff Friedman from the Greene County Chamber participated in a roundtable several weeks ago on workforce. Right now, there are 2,000 separate job titles that are being posted in the aggregate on websites online for positions in Columbia County. Right now, we're still at about 4% unemployment, and there's between 800 and 1,200 people in that group. When you look at the job numbers, eligible, the workforce remained flat this month, but the workforce is about 21,000 people, but that includes people who are eligible up to 65. So if you're a state worker and retired at 55 and you're living in Columbia County, you're being counted, but you may have no plan or desire to work. So, the big risk is there's not enough, there's twice as many job openings as there are hypothetically based on plus or minus data available to work. And so one of the issues that tied into with the supervisors was part of the issue is there's no place for people to live. And one of the things that they mentioned yesterday at our OMI is they have 12 full-time staff people, and over half of them live out of the county. And Rensselaer County, Greene County, Western Massachusetts. So the supervisors did raise the issue that what is CEDC doing on our behalf in terms of housing? You'll recall that we had collaborated with Pattern for Progress to piggyback off their study for the city of Hudson, which has been submitted by Patterns to the city in draft form. The city has not yet released it. And I did participate in those meetings. And once it's released, we will have a presentation to the board on that. And you'll recall we had agreed to a $8,000 study to follow the city's study that would focus in on 3 types of housing projects. One would be the mixed use, the multifamily unit projects that you could have in communities that have the infrastructure to support it, which are only 6 areas of the county have sufficient, water, sewer, gas, electric, and broadband at the same location. We would then look at a model for 4 to 6 unit housing for communities that would be able to use well and septic, and then a program that would help people rehabilitate housing that's fallen into in disrepair, either with wood rot and windows and roofs and furnaces and heating and or water and electrical systems. Why not take some of the housing stock that has fallen into disrepair over 30 or 40 years and focus on that, as well as especially in the rural communities and in the hamlets and villages, where that would add to the vitality of those communities as well as provide housing stock. So I think when we look at the kind of the list of things that the county is interested, it's really continued broadband. There's been some discussion of taking it to the next step on cell service, and there's a governor's task force on that, similar to what they started with on broadband, and then workforce, and then housing, and then just basic infrastructure. New Lebanon has contacted us to work on identifying for them a process and grant funding, not where we would direct it, but as a concierge to get them the data so they could, they want to put water and sewer on the main street and 22 and on some of the side streets. So again, as we get ready to move forward with our strategic planning process, which we will pick up again at our December meeting. Mary Ellen wasn't available this month. And I think one of the committees will report on where we were on that. I think that I don't know how we reconcile it with our role in workforce, but when you look at the things that are most difficult for businesses now are workforce to come to work, and to get people available to come to work, you have to focus in on training and education, and then also infrastructure, and then broadband, and then you have the various industries, manufacturing, agribusiness, creative economy, and the service business. And again, as we look at what our capacity is, both financially and with staff resources, and having limitations on those, we need to get input, from the board and get direction on how we can be most effective and how we can stay in our lane, but at the same time be the resource we've become by default. So in terms of projects, we're working very diligently with the city IDA in our role there with the Pocketbook Factory project, the 620 Union Street Hotel project, and the 2 Galvin housing projects, as well as working with HDC as they move forward in closing on the CAS sale. We have been working with 2 developers who are looking at projects in the town of Greenport. One would be a 150-unit affordable apartment complex where rents would be capped at 130% of county median income. So if the family made more than $90,000 or $100,000, they couldn't live there, as well as a storage center that would be built on both of these projects would be adjacent to the Napa Auto Supply facility. One of the issues is that the housing project is considering IDA financing, but there are no regulations issued yet by the tax department or the labor department relevant to a statute that's been enacted that requires, as of January 1, that any project that is over $5 million and receives more than 30% of its development or construction costs that hasn't been defined from state or local government incentives must have prevailing wage employees to build it. We did talk with Mike Benson about that.
Yeah.
You have contractors out there that say that's going to drive the price up 20%, and he said, if you're a functioning contractor now, you're paying that because you otherwise wouldn't have good workers. The only problem becomes, prevailing wage generally means a union, but non-union contractors can pay prevailing wage and still do work. So, but as they keep layering on these requirements, particularly in the first year of implementing that type of a new law, people are nervous about what impact it'll have when you add the supply chain and material costs increases that people have experienced. So a lot going on. Martha has a lot of loan projects in the pipeline. Lauren Crana started back yesterday from her maternity leave, and welcome back, Lauren.
Thank you. Good to be back. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Laura.
And we still have a project manager ad out, and Kathy Leiden and Lorraine Bolson and who are working on our finances and our loan administration have been doing a great job as well. Not to mention Lisa, who keeps the operation running and makes sure we comply with all of the state regulatory requirements. She and I are going to hopefully, after we pass today's budget, post it online, and she's going to help me figure out how I get the credentials necessary to do that. She can post it, but someone else has to certify it. So we have dual certifications here. So we have a lot going on, and again, we're trying to stay focused on the mission that of the organization. But we were very excited. Dr. Drummer was there as well, and Sarah Sterling over the weekend. Assemblymember Barrett was able to get $1 million, basically member item, the largest grant ever provided for a single park, New York State park, to provide $1 million towards the Olana Visitor Center. And they had an announcement for that. At 11 o'clock or 11:15, I have every other month we have a conference call with 8 or 10 of us who are in a conference call with Representative Delgado on his Small Business Advisory Committee. So a lot is going on, and I think if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them. But otherwise, we should go to the finance.
Lisa, do we just have a quorum? Just. Yeah.
When someone leaves, you still have a quorum.
Okay.
And anybody,
Because Mike has to leave.
not that you want to leave.
On the finance,
Yeah.
on the finances, perhaps since Mike doesn't have to leave on the budget, perhaps we should jump to the finance committee report.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I can incorporate the treasurer's report, and then John can report on the budget recommendation.
Go right ahead.
Basically, the balance sheet is there's not much change to it. I see that we gave you the full balance sheet that the committee gets. We're up $106,000. Most of that is from our assets are up 162. Most of that is from our loan fund and the fact that we have a high receivable from the county. The check did come in yesterday, the $62,000 quarterly payment. Often PJ Keeler sends it early, but this month it was a little bit delayed. So, I think that we had the discussion at the finance committee about the fact that our operating cash is down, but that's because our budget is balanced based on taking in the interest from the loan funds. And up until now, we've for the last 5 years plus, we've been putting the interest in from the loan fund. We've left it in the loan fund. So you'll see on the asset side, $162,000 increase in SBA funding for loans, and $45,000 increase for the reserves for the loan fund. So almost $200,000 of the increase relates to the loan fund. Jim, this was on page 1 of the packet. Were you looking for?
No.
Okay. Great. Any questions on the balance sheet? On the P and L, I'm just going to jump to the bottom line. On page 3 of 3, we're showing net income of 20,612. We had projected a negative 56, so we're doing well on the budget. But if you look, if you look at it, if you go back and look at our revenue at the top of page 2, total income, we're $67,000 up in total income, but our PPP allowance was 68.7, and that was last year's PPP. So it got booked because of the fact that we had it forgiven in January. We have submitted the PPP forgiveness application for this year, which is 64,000. So if you look at that 64,000 and you compare that to the variance of 67,000, we're really $3,000 under budget for revenue. And on the total expense side, we're $18,000 down. So, but we had tightened our budget significantly because, as you can see, where we were off budget, $25,000 on membership and over on some of our expenses, on our total employee expense, we're down $62,000. Now that's the way we absorbed the 60,000 that we had budgeted for from the DNJ funds this year. And so the positive news is we picked up most of the county loss from 75% of the county loss with PPP money, and we didn't have to use the 60,000. If you any questions on the P&L? If you jump to the budget page, there are 2 pages. First one is marked A. What we did is we took the 2021 budget. We looked at January to September actual. We used October to December remaining budgeted to come up with a projected amount. So if you look at the projected column, we're showing 863,000, but that's projected by having the 132,000 of PPP money. So if you took the 132 off, we're at 730, and we had budgeted 741. Now, if you look for next year, what we have projected is based, or what we have projected is based on increasing our administrative revenue from 41,000, which is our projected for this year, to 70. That's assuming we'll get 10% of half of the projects before the city of Hudson IDA. There's $35 million of projects are 25 million. Well, the 35 million for the housing projects and $25 million for the pocketbook factories. So we figured one of those will close. The 460 is the county coming back up to full bore. Let's see. Grant income, SBA interest is up a bit, not much, down from what we budgeted last year. Membership and sponsorship, we generally bring in $15,000 from our annual meeting sponsorship, which we didn't have. So we thought with a little push on some of the high-end $2,500 members who we let off the hook last year, 2 years because of COVID, but we could improve that. And then there's no PPP money, and our budget for 2022 is based on what we received from the SBA this year, which 50% is at the 180, and I dropped 50% to the 120 that we had received the prior year. It's all based on volume, and you don't know till next June what your allocation is going to be. So I think the revenue side is pretty solid. And then on the,
May I just,
Sure.
may I just, finance, I think we just got to keep an eye on administrative and membership. I think it's a tiny bit aspirational. I'm prepared to approve it, but it may be more hopeful than now.
well, and I do think we have been talking internally about the membership, and we do have we've created the pyramid, and we started to identify 3 times the number of people we need for each slot on the pyramid, which is a little more structured than we have ever done. We kind of just relied on friends and family, and I think we will ask some of you to help us with specific people this time. But
Mike, can I ask a quick question? You're going to ask for budget approval. Should we focus on version A or B?
well, if you take a look at B, the reason there's B, they both are the same in terms of the 2022 budget. What I was trying to show you on B was how we did this year if you took the PPP money out.
So B shows a shortfall.
B shows the shortfall, and the difference is if I took the 68,000 that the accountants made us book, which was cash last year from PPP, and took that out. And so the difference between A and B is projected $794,000 versus 863. Because, from a cash, this is a half cash, half accrual kind of concept, but we had to book it this year, but it was really against last year. And so this, on this model, we lose, B only shows, the only purpose of B is to show that because the PPP from last year that had to be booked this year when it was forgiven, had we not received that, we would have had a $27,000 loss.
Right.
And I just wanted you to kind of bring that back to reality, because we're also going to have a very skewed year end, because we're going to have to report the $60,000 in income from the county for the broadband. Now we've booked 30 of it as an expense. So, but you'll have another 30,000. And so it's going to look like, oh, you were $100,000 to the good, but from a really an analytical operating standpoint, we lost 30,000.
That's exactly where they want to pay it now.
Right. But in either case, we're voting for a balanced budget.
Right, you're voting for and I guess it really wasn't B. It was just I was showing a version of how I got to.
Okay, sorry.
And then on the expense side, we went through this. I went through it with each of the people for respective departments. Martha for her area, and Lisa and I looked at it, and we had previously under budgeted some of the expenses relating that are booked under office expense. We had budgeted 45 and we were at 50. We're projecting 51, so we put it at 50 because some of the sponsorships for organizational membership that we participate in were in there. So if there's no further questions, I would ask that the
Sure.
finance committee chair to report on the committee and whether we could approve the budget.
We did go over the budget during the finance committee meeting, and as Jim said, he made those observations that he just made now at the meeting. We agreed at the end of the meeting that this, with the idea that we would keep an eye on administrative revenue and membership, that we would approve this or move this on to the full board with our blessing. So that's.
Any more questions or discussion on the budget? I look for a motion to approve the draft 2022 budget.
So moved.
Sorry?
Make clear which version.
So moved.
Well, there's only one version. It's just that there's two ways of presenting it. So it's,
We'll call
A.
Budget.
budget A.
We had Ken,
Ken said he moved it.
Okay, and a second, please.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried.
Thank you.
Back up for 1 second. We didn't put the treasurer report.
Okay, is there a motion to?
Motion, any discussion on the treasurer report? Motion to accept. Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Going down the list, the executive committee, we did not have a meeting. And governance and nominating, we did not have a meeting. But loan committee, we did. Martha, you want to do a portfolio review?
Before Martha starts, I'm going to just circulate this each way on a new ad that Martha and I have come up with, and it'll be in the Chamber Fall Magazine.
Okay, we cleaned up this report pretty well. 711 County Road 3, which is the pond restaurant, is a month behind. The next one on the list is train time. I am disappointed that we are hopeful that the buyer, the potential buyer, will close on that train. It's supposed to happen by the end of this month, and I'll have an update after this meeting. We're fast approaching the end of the month, so we'll find out what's going on. The next one on the list is Hudson Clothier. We received 2 payments from them yesterday, and then on the last page, that's the pond again, their second goal.
Any discussion?
What is the pond, a timing issue or is there a credit issue?
I think it's become one of those 30 days in arrears, kind of a rolling 30 day. We got to check on them every month. It's going to be difficult to get them caught up.
Any more discussion? Motion to approve the portfolio report.
So moved.
Second,
I'll second that.
all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carried. You have one loan request?
One loan request. Okay, can everyone hear me? Everyone who's online?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yep.
Mike and I have been working with the
Now you just went away.
I think you're muted, Martha.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. A $1.4 million project, just over 800,000 of that is equity from a total of 33 investors. They're applying, or rather the city of Hudson is applying for a CDBG for this project, and that's approximately $375,000. So debt will be a total of $250,000, and our portion of that will be $50,000. If this loan is approved, it won't close until the first quarter of 2022. They expect to receive their retail brewer's license in January. But they are looking for a commitment at this time because that will strengthen their CDBG application, which is to be filed in the first part of November. Once again, we have 4 managing members, 3 of whom worked at 6 Point Brewery in Brooklyn. They have experience with startup and expanding a brewery. They have their wholesale license. They're already selling in the New York City area, and the only challenge is producing enough beer. They're selling out on a regular basis, and the beer is being brewed at Crossroads Brewery at this time. They have relationships with a large number of brewers in the area. Again, it's a phased approach. They're doing wholesale now. Their year 1 technically is going to begin in February of 2022. At that point, they will start building out the tap room, and they will be doing retail sales. And then eventually they'll have a full kitchen, and that will be at the end of 2022 or even the beginning of 2023. And Rick Orlando is the uncle of one of the owners, and he's going to be directing the kitchen and the menu and the entire restaurant operation.
And they have received city planning board approval, as I understand.
That's my understanding, that all they had to agree to was outdoor music would end at 8 p.m. and they had to provide, I think it was 6 or 8 parking spaces for employees, and they're able to do that.
Questions?
Couple of questions. Say something, you said you were gonna leave early. Am I-
Yeah, I had a couple minutes to spare. I just wanted to come hear what,
Okay.
I just think we were in a brewery bubble.
Well, and they're across the street from a brewery. And the city council did approve the office community renewal application. if that's approved, we do receive a $15,000 administrative fee for administering that grant for the city, as we have done for the county in the past. And it's fun to work with these four young fellows. They're very energetic. They're very entrepreneurial. As always, Martha has tested their numbers and brought them back from some early aggressive thoughts on ramp up. Businesses take a while to get to the early numbers, but and they do have an interesting model. Their debt or their equity is basically what do you call it, Martha? Where they have multiple friends and family and.
Yeah, but they have a total of 33 Class B members, none of whom owns more than 4% of the company.
It sounds kind of chaotic. I mean, like as far as management, the decision making, you have 4 managing partners. It's hard to get people to, 2 people to agree. Sometimes you have 4 decision makers and you have 33 investors that all want to be paid back.
We had Andy look at the legal documents.
Yeah,
Andy?
we have an operating agreement that we asked Andy to review. Andy, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I mean,
Thanks, Mike.
the class of membership, the Class B members don't have any voting rights or managerial rights. They're basically silent investors. Management is squarely centered around managers themselves. And if they want to go out and do more in terms of financing beyond the sort of one we're talking about here, then they would, need to get the approval not of the Class A members.
Is there any plan on buying their equity back from investors? Or?
I'm not sure about that.
Not that I'm aware of.
It's called crowdfunding, right?
Yes.
I couldn't think of the word.
So is that 84,000 in hand, or is that a
It is
commitment
in hand.
in hand?
In-
And then a second source you said was CDBG money?
Yes, 375.
And what if that's not procured?
They will move forward if it isn't, but they are working with LaBerge, and I think they have a pretty strong application.
The state has more money than they can fund for these programs right now. And, this is right. We've had several discussions with the team in Albany that administers the grant program, and they're excited about it.
So this is a leasehold improvement, correct?
Correct.
Right, so what's the duration of their lease?
It's 5 years with a 5-year option.
Okay, so it more or less coincides with our.
Right. And the community development grant is only for equipment. And so, and the deal with the state is that you have to keep the equipment operating for 5 years.
And you have to meet the job.
Yeah, job requirement. It's $15,000 a job. So they got to the 300 to 375.
Do they have any thoughts on the workforce shortage?
Well, it's a challenge.
Yeah.
It's a challenge everywhere. So, but yes, they have a full proposal on what they're going to pay people, what the hours are going to be, and it looks like they have a fairly generous package.
Is there any possibility of conflicting liens? I see there's no bank lending.
There will be a bank. We are talking to banks for a $200,000 loan. And so we anticipate putting either a blanket lien on the equipment subordinate to that other lender, which we have done many times, or perhaps that lender will carve out a piece of equipment valued at $50,000 to cover our loan.
So I must confess, when I read this, I thought they were in a hurry. And my question had been on a regulatory side, what if they don't get a brewer's permit? What if procuring that permit is delayed? Why the rush? You explained, I think, why, but it's still.
I think the issue is that because they're sitting with $800,000 in cash, they're working here now. I mean, they're in there, they got signs up and.
One of them has moved up here full time.
And they're brewing.
Yeah.
So they have the brewer's license. They need the liquor license to open the restaurant.
They don't have the brewer's license.
They have a wholesale license.
They have a wholesale
A
license.
wholesale,
Yeah.
but they're still waiting for another license.
Right.
And I'm just asking, what if they don't get it? I have
Our-
no idea.
Our
What if
loan
it's
is contingent on them
On
receiving
the,
it.
yeah.
And
So
that's
they
why I
are-
thought, what's our hurry? But you're saying this fortifies their CDBG grant.
Right. And I mean, it's probably the highest capitalized development project I've seen since I've been here. Right, they're getting 25% of their investment in debt.
And I'm assuming.
Yes.
Mike, I have a separate question, which is, I'll just throw out, and I don't really mean to derail on this. I supported this project because in terms of reading their stuff, they hit the mark. My question is a little broader, philosophical maybe. Is there a point, there are a ton of breweries now in this community. And I think we've stood behind, I don't know, at least a couple. And in terms of kind of big picture, is there a point at which we,
Seth, can you
from a
speak?
life-
Speak louder, Seth, please.
sorry, I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
Barely.
No.
Yeah,
Trying to see what the volume setting here is.
I'm up on my volume, so I don't.
Hold on
I
one
don't
second, please.
know. Okay,
Here we go.
can you hear me?
1 second.
Okay,
Try that now.
hello, can you hear me?
Better.
Okay, I'll try to speak up too. So my question is simple, and again, I don't want to take the board's time, but given the concentration of a particular kind of applicant, is there a point at which we say, we're going to set some parameters about how much we fund a particular effort, a particular kind of thing? And I don't even need an answer. I'm just raising the thought. There's a ton of breweries. There's a
Why don't we do this? Why don't we sit down and create a chart as to how many restaurants we have, how many breweries we have, how many shops we have, and have the loan committee take a look at that. I think it's, in fact, right now I would suspect our risk is diluted by being all over the county.
Yeah, and
But-
it could be fine. Again, I'm
Take a
just
look at
asking the question as a part of big picture health. We don't want to have something where we're funding entities that, inevitably will outcompete one another. And what's the point of that? That's all.
I think your point is we should be looking at concentrations as well as individual credit risks.
I think what
To
our
some extent, yeah.
lender would put an older lender out of business, right?
Well, and our goal here is not to compete with banks. I mean, we're here to help those businesses that need to get started where a bank might not provide the amount of funds they need as debt or any funds as debt. And
Right. That's all.
So this was approved at the loan committee.
It was.
With Andy's review.
That's correct.
Any more discussion? Look for a motion.
And again, what it's important to do this today, right?
Yes, the application is going to be filed in the first part of November.
I'll make a motion.
In favor?
Yes.
Second?
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Moving down the list, workforce and education, no meeting, and we don't quite know what's going to happen with that now anyway.
we do have a meeting coming up, so there'll be some discussion for our next board meeting.
And you reference, we don't know what's going to happen. Is that strategic planning kind of?
Yeah, pretty much, right? We have a draft copy of our 2022 meeting calendar.
We're also reviewing that internally, so I will, didn't realize we were doing, I hadn't gotten a chance to finalize it with some other meetings, but take a look at it and we'll get a final version to you. If you have any specific input, please get back to us.
You had already spoken about strategic plan, and it's on the list here.
Right.
You good?
Yep, all good.
You from the public? No one? Motion adjourned.
9:29.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
What is that?
Well, we were between the train and the sirens going to the hospital. We get a lot of people think I'm in New York City on the Zoom calls.
And so.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Yeah, where's, what's the geography?
How's your business?
I did yesterday.
Let me get off of this before.
I knew it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was funny. I looked up there.
Here, best way to do this.
Exactly. Yeah.
My business is fine, we're trying to find a new warehouse because we're renting in so many spaces.
So close, right?
Yeah.
We've been like 20 years.
Really bizarre. And the first question.
We were on Middle Road, now we're in
Right.
Belmont and.
So I used to, you know,
Yeah, we're everywhere. It's a lot of outgoing.
Did you come up with that barbecue recipe or?
No,
Okay.